When you bought groceries last week, filled up your gas tank, or ordered something online, did you think about oil prices? You should have. Because right now, in 2026, oil prices are secretly controlling how much you pay for almost everything. And here's the thing. Most people have no idea this is happening. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how a barrel of crude oil sitting in the ground halfway across the world determines the price of your morning coffee, your clothing, and your electricity bill. First, let's get the basics straight. Oil isn't just used for gasoline. When we talk about crude oil prices, we're talking about a global commodity. The main benchmarks are West Texas Intermediate, or WTI, and Brent crude. Crude oil is refined into gasoline, diesel, and other products. It's also used as a raw material for plastics and packaging. It's a key input for fertilizers. And it's fuel for every truck, ship, and plane that moves products around the world. When oil prices spike, all of these costs go up. And when they go up, they trickle down through the entire economy. Let's follow a specific example. Imagine a tomato grown on a farm in California. That tomato needs to be harvested using diesel-powered machinery. It's packed in plastic containers made from oil. Then it's loaded onto a refrigerated truck powered by diesel. The truck drives it to a distribution center. Then it's loaded onto another truck and transported to your local supermarket. Every single step requires energy. Now here's the critical number. Diesel fuel makes up 40 to 50% of all shipping and transportation costs. When oil prices rise, diesel becomes more expensive. And when diesel is more expensive, every single one of those steps costs more money. Shipping companies don't absorb these costs. They pass them on through fuel surcharges. Just recently, March 2026, we saw a real-world example. In just 2 weeks, diesel prices jumped from $3.89 per gallon to $5.37 per gallon. That's a 38% increase. This happened because of geopolitical tensions that disrupted oil supplies. And when transportation costs spike like this, the cost to transport that tomato from the farm to your store increases dramatically. And you pay more at the checkout. That tomato you bought, the milk, the bread, all of it costs more. It's not just fresh produce either. This affects everything that needs to be transported. The shipping companies pass on their costs directly to consumers. But it doesn't stop at transportation. Oil costs affect food production at multiple stages. First, farming equipment runs on diesel. Tractors, harvesters, irrigation pumps, all powered by oil. When oil prices rise, farmers face higher costs for fuel to operate their equipment. These costs get passed to the food distributors, then to the supermarket, then to you. Second, fertilizer. About half the cost of fertilizer comes from energy. When oil prices spike, so do fertilizer prices. This happened dramatically in 2021 and 2022, when ammonia production costs, the base for fertilizers, skyrocketed because of energy prices. Higher fertilizer costs mean farmers pay more, which eventually means food prices go up for you. Third, processing and storage. Food processing facilities use energy. Refrigeration requires energy. Distribution requires energy. All of these steps rely on fossil fuels. When oil prices go up, electricity and fuel costs go up, making food processing more expensive. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, direct energy costs account for about 3 cents of every food dollar. But that's just direct costs. When you add in transportation, storage, and processing, the real energy impact is much higher. It's spread throughout the entire supply chain, making food noticeably more expensive. Research shows the bottom 60% of income earners spend close to 4% of their take-home pay on gasoline alone. For the top 10%, it's only about 2%. So when oil prices surge, grocery prices follow. And it hits those who can afford it least the hardest. This widens the gap between rich and poor. But food is just the beginning. Oil impacts everything you buy. Packaging. Most food and product packaging is plastic, which is made from oil. When crude oil prices rise, plastic becomes more expensive. This cost gets passed to consumers through higher product prices. Everything from the milk you drink in a plastic jug to the takeout container your lunch comes in. Clothing, synthetic fabrics like polyester are oil-based. The transportation of clothing from factories overseas also depends on diesel and shipping fuel. Your jeans, your shirts, your jackets, they're all made from or depend on oil. Higher fuel costs mean higher import prices and longer shipping delays. Electronics and appliances. These products are shipped globally. Higher fuel costs mean higher import prices and longer shipping delays. Some companies have even started reshoring manufacturing closer to their markets to reduce transportation costs. They're building factories in America instead of Asia to avoid these shipping costs. Airline tickets. This is perhaps the most direct impact. Airlines are highly fuel-intensive. When oil prices rise, you'll see airline ticket prices increase within weeks. During the recent oil price spike in March 2026, travel costs rose noticeably. If you were planning a vacation, you suddenly needed more money for the flight. The bottom line, if a product needs to be produced, packaged, or transported, and almost everything does, oil prices affect its cost. Oil doesn't just affect the fuel in your car. It's the underlying cost driver for the entire modern economy. You've probably heard the term inflation. It's when prices go up and your money buys less stuff. And you might have noticed that inflation and oil prices seem to move together. That's not a coincidence. There's a real connection. When oil prices spike, they push up inflation in two ways. First, the direct effect. Energy prices rise. Gasoline and heating costs go up immediately. You feel this right away when you fill up your tank. These are direct costs that every consumer experiences, and they push up the overall inflation rate quickly. Second, the indirect effect. All the costs I mentioned, transportation, production, packaging, they all increase, which pushes up inflation broadly across the economy. These indirect effects take a bit longer to appear in stores, but they're just as real. However, here's something important. The relationship between oil and inflation has changed over decades. According to research from the Federal Reserve, the connection isn't as strong as it used to be. In the 1970s, energy represented 6 to 7% of consumer spending. Today it's smaller, but it's still significant, especially for lower-income families who spend a bigger percentage of their income on energy. In March 2026, inflation hit 3.3% annually, the highest rate since May 2024. And experts warned that if oil prices from the recent geopolitical disruptions persist, inflation could push toward 4% or higher. That's a significant jump in a short time period. Research from Oxford Economics suggested the impact of oil shocks will push headline CPI inflation well above 3%, with broader impacts lasting months. This means high prices won't be temporary. You'll feel the impact for an extended period. What does this mean? When inflation rises, your money buys less. $1 today is worth less than $1 tomorrow. So if you're a saver, you lose purchasing power. If you have fixed income from a pension or investment, you lose because your income stays the same, but prices go up. Let me give you a very real, recent example of how this works. In March 2026, geopolitical tensions in the Middle East drove oil prices higher. The situation disrupted shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, a critical waterway through which 80% of global seaborne oil passes. Ships carrying oil couldn't pass through safely due to drone attacks and military tensions. Most tanker traffic became suspended or redirected to longer, more expensive routes. This created a sudden supply shortage of millions of barrels per day. Gasoline prices jumped from 3.01 cents to $3.96 per gallon in 2 weeks. That's a 31% increase. Think about that. In just 14 days, your gas pump showed significantly higher prices. Diesel prices jumped from $3.89 to $5.37 per gallon. That's a 38% increase. Remember, this is the fuel that powers all the trucks and ships that deliver your goods. This increase ripples through the entire economy immediately. Consumers experienced an additional $4 billion in fuel costs in just the first month after the oil spike began. That's real money coming out of real people's pockets. And that's just the direct fuel costs. It doesn't include the increased costs for groceries, shipping, and other goods. Here's what happened. Inflation expectations rose sharply. Grocery prices started climbing. Shipping delays increased. Airline ticket prices went up. Everything that needed to be transported became more expensive. Economists warned of stagflation, rising inflation and rising unemployment, a scenario that has followed major oil shocks historically. This is one of the worst economic conditions because prices go up while jobs become scarce and wages stagnate. Mark Zandi, chief economist at Moody's Analytics, stated, "We should see airline ticket increases, higher grocery prices, and increased transportation costs throughout much of the year." Notice he said throughout much of the year. This isn't a temporary spike. The pain would last for months. This wasn't just about gas at the pump. It was about everything. Every product in every store. every delivery, every service. When oil prices spike, the entire economy feels it. So why should you care about this? First, understanding oil prices helps you understand inflation and the economy. If oil prices are spiking, you now know inflation is likely coming. You can prepare. You can make smarter financial decisions. If oil prices are high and likely to stay high, consider buying essentials now before prices rise further. Don't overspend on discretionary items. Be cautious with variable rate debt like adjustable rate mortgages. Consider investments in energy stocks. These are practical steps to protect your wealth. Third, it explains why your cost of living changes even when your salary stays the same. It's not your imagination when groceries get expensive. It's not random. It's connected to global oil markets. Your purchasing power decreases, even though you're earning the same amount. Fourth, it shows you why lower-income families are hit hardest. When energy prices spike, those with less disposable income suffer more, because a higher percentage of their budget goes to essential items like food and gas. This widens the wealth gap and makes inequality worse. Oil prices don't just affect the fuel in your car. They control the price of your food, your clothes, your electricity, your shipping costs, and your overall standard of living. That barrel of crude oil sitting in the ground somewhere determines what you pay at the grocery store, at the airline counter, and in your rent or mortgage. The next time you hear about oil prices on the news, don't tune out, because now you know oil prices are controlling your wallet. You understand the mechanism. You see how it flows through the economy. You can use this knowledge to make better financial decisions. If you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what surprised you most about how oil affects your life. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video about finance and economics.